What if I were to say to you that the Irish Revolution was in some way connected to the occult? Would you believe me? Oh yes. At the turn of the 20th century, Ireland was going through a profound change, fueled by a growing sense of identity and inspired by a new verve for the Irish language, culture and tradition. A group of writers, artists and activists set out to create a new Ireland. This group played a significant part in the cultural zeitgeist that surrounded the Irish Revolution, and these characters were, of course, WB Yeats, Lady Gregory, Constance Markievicz, Maud Gonne and George Russell. This cultural movement was deeply influenced by Irish folklore, mythology and the occult. They believed that Irish independence was not just a political movement, but a cultural and spiritual movement as well. WB Yeats, for example, was deeply inspired by Celtic mythology, traditions, folklore, and his writings were heavily influenced by mystical and occult beliefs. Maud Gonne, who was also an accomplished writer and artist, was similarly influenced by mystical and occult beliefs. She believed in the power of symbolism and myth to inspire social and political change. Russell was known by a pen name A.E. He was deeply interested in the occult and mysticism, and in fact was the first person to introduce WB Yeats to the occult while they met studying in college. Russell believed that Ireland's ancient spiritual traditions could be harnessed to inspire a new cultural and political movement. Lady Gregory, who was an unbelievable writer and theatre director, played a pivotal role in the cultural movement and literary revival of the time. She was a close friend and collaborator with WB Yeats, and they both co-founded the Abbey Theatre. Yeats, Gonne, Constance Markievicz were all born in the 1860s and were close in age. Lady Gregory was slightly older by about a decade. Yeats had a long-standing romantic interest in Maud Gonne, which was famously unrequited. Both Constance Markievicz and Lady Gregory were both married, so Yeats did not have relations with them. Yeats and Maud Gonne consummated from his side love affair at one point. He certainly was inspired by these women because of their unbelievable determination, creativity and political interests. It is interesting to note that these figures were aristocratic class to a certain extent, some being born in England, some in the Anglo-Irish version of Ireland, some being Protestant. For instance, Yeats, Lady Gregory both came from affluent Protestant families in Ireland. Gonne's father was an Irish revolutionary and her mother was English, and she grew up in a somewhat bohemian and unconventional household in Aldershot, England, but she spent most of her time in France and Ireland. Lady Gregory was fully Irish and was born in County Galway, where she lived most of her life. Gonne was raised in a Protestant household but later converted to Catholicism, and she became involved with Irish nationalist and Catholic organisations. Markievicz was initially raised as a Protestant, but she later converted to Catholicism as well. Let's talk about the connection to the occult. Yeats was deeply influenced by mysticism and spirituality. He was a member of the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, which was a secret society that practiced ceremonial magic. Gonne was a follower of the occultist and mystic Aleister Crowley. Lady Gregory herself wrote and collected a bunch of folklore and mythology. I own one of her collections here, and the foreword is by WB Yeats. Finally, I want to talk a little bit about George Russell, also known as A.E. Russell was born in Lurgan, County Armagh in 1867 and was raised in a Protestant family. He became interested in Irish culture and nationalism in his youth and was a member of several cultural organisations. He was a member of theosophical organisations and was particularly interested in the idea of reincarnation. While spiritual beliefs were a significant factor in the lives and works of many of these key historical figures, in the Irish cultural and political revival of the early 20th century, it would be inaccurate to say that they were a major factor of the rebellions that followed. Now, trust me, I'm not saying that. But the connection is fairly prevalent in terms of the cultural zeitgeist that was happening at that time. Easter Rising in 1916 were far more complex and multifaceted, and while cultural and spiritual nationalism played a role, there were many factors at play, including political, economic and social factors. The same could be said for the Irish War of Independence, 1919-1921, and the subsequent Irish Civil War. The Irish Revolution and the occult, somewhat connected. Would you believe me? Oh yes.